Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. Well guys, I'm starting another little restoration project. This one actually kind of has a purpose to it in that we've got coming up in the end of September the annual Iron Fest event, which is something I've been going to for many, many years. If you follow my channel, I'm sure you've heard me talk about it. But as this year, we're going to have during the auction a giveaway, or actually it's going to be a bid on and win it type of a situation. But it's going to be for these parts and pieces that I have right here. And what these are parts and pieces for a machine like this. This is a miter trimmer, a very old one, late 1800s, early 1900s. This is for trimming up, precision trimming up a piece of wood to a miter or a 90-degree angle or so forth. I'm going to zoom you in here. This one back here happens to be my personal one that I have, and the one that I'm going to be restoring is pretty much identical to it. It's just a little bit later version, and when I say later, it's probably still very early 1900s. Mine actually, I think, dates back to the 1890s. It's a little bit earlier model. But I'm going to zoom in here and kind of show you what this is, how you use it, and then show you what we got to do on the one that we need to restore. Basically, the way you use a miter trimmer is if you got a piece of wood and you're wanting to trim off just a tiny bit or get a perfect angle or whatever on it, this is the machine to use to trim it up to get it to its final dimension, final size. There are wings on either side that you can adjust to different angles. There's actually a line scribed in here, and for 90 degrees and 45 degrees, there's a pin that you can drop down through here, and I actually don't have mine in here right now because I'm going to have to make some new ones, and I sent it off to have some new pieces cast. But there's a pin that locks in place so you can automatically go to that, and there's other angles usually scribed on here that are common angles, but I'm just going to show a 90 degree right now because I've got a block of wood here that has a 90 degree on the end, but let's say for example, this cut is not square. I can tell that by looking at it. So I'm just going to put it in here. And it's kind of got a guillotine type action here. You don't want to take off very much, but you slide this across and that knife comes down and just shaves it off nice and square. I'm going to bring you around to the back side where you can see it, the action there. So again, we're not trying to take big chunks off here at a time. We're just really trying to take little bitty fine passes, and you just bring this down and you can see where it's not quite square up there at the top. So we're going to take another pass, and now we've got a nice square cut on there, and that's actually a very nice fine. It didn't really tear the grain out. This knife on here is razor sharp. So anyway, that's kind of how a miter trimmer works. So you kind of have an idea of what we're working on. So I thought I'd give you a quick look at what we're starting with. These are all the parts and pieces, and this is pretty much as it was when I picked this piece up last year, actually at Iron Fest. It was there. I actually bid on it and won it in an auction. And my idea at the time was, since I already have one, is I wanted to restore this, bring it back. I'm going to bring it back this year. I'm going to put it back in the auction, and we're going to auction it off. The proceeds from that just goes to kind of benefit the Iron Fest group. It benefits the Vintage Machinery website that we run that has a lot of the information. It benefits the Old Woodworking Machines website discussion forum, which is kind of the beneficiaries of the Iron Fest event, if you might say. And part of it also goes to the Illinois Railway Museum, which is where we host the event at each year. But anyway, when I got it, like I said, it was already taken apart. It was in pieces. The biggest problem we've got is this piece here was broken, this little wing on the end. This is just a guard that protects you when that knife comes out so it doesn't cut you. Someone had previously attempted to braze it. It didn't turn out, and it was in the box all broken when I got it. So we're going to start by brazing that back on. I'll comment that the finish on this, we're going to have to just repaint it. Mine has the original finish and the original patina. I really like that. It's in decent shape. This one was just too far gone. It was pretty rusty when I got it. I put it in some Evap-O-Rust, and when I started scrubbing on this with a Scotch-Brite pad, the paint or whatever was on there, Japanning it may have been, I'm not sure, it just started coming off. So I went ahead and just cleaned it all off, and we're going to repaint it and put it all back together. I think I got all the major pieces. I know I'm missing some hardware. We may have to buy or make a few pieces there, but I think we can get this going pretty easily. So let's go get this set up for brazing, and we'll start with getting that little piece there fixed. Sorry guys, we lost some audio here due to a dead battery, so I'm going to have to do some voiceover here, but I wanted to kind of show you right here in this scene the setup we're going to do for brazing this back together. If you notice, I've laid this thing up on a couple of fire bricks, and I put them up on the fire bricks for a couple of reasons. Number one, that's going to give me some insulation just between the bench and the part itself. That workbench is just a big heat sink, and when you're working on there adding heat, the heat is going directly into that metal bench. So with those fire bricks in there, hopefully I have that insulation that's going to help pull that heat out. And also the second thing it's doing is it's actually kind of picking it up and giving me a flat surface to lay the whole thing down onto, which will again help me in just positioning the parts and getting things ready for brazing up here. By having it on these bricks, because there's a little bit of a low spot behind there, it's laying flat all the way across from one side to the other, which is going to be really beneficial here in my setup. We got things ready here by doing a little bit of weld prep first to the cast iron. So first off, just got it really, really clean. There was all kinds of stuff on here, a lot of braze. I didn't get all the braze off, but we did get most of the braze off, and also did a little bit of beveling there. There was even some putty or something in there, like maybe some filler material that they put in to kind of cover things up on a previous repair. All that was stripped off to get ready for the actual new braze job here. Now for brazing it, we're not going to do it with a torch. I'm actually going to use my TIG torch to provide the heat to come in here and weld this together. A little bit different method than using the torch, which is probably the method that I've used the most, but this is actually a great application for doing TIG on because it is such a thin area there. I really don't have to get a lot of preheat into it, and hopefully we're going to be able to get a nice brazing job across here. As far as the rods that I'm using, we're going to be using an aluminum bronze rod. Of course, that will not have any flux on it like you would have with a regular torch brazing. With TIG brazing, you will have the shielding gases coming out of the torch that's going to protect from any oxidation, so you really don't have a need for that flux like you do when you're brazing with gas. So with that, let's get in here and start tacking this thing together. Now we're going to get in here and actually start the actual TIG job, and to do that I'm just trying to start off by soaking some heat in here. I'm not putting a whole lot of amps on here, just barely getting a torch going across here, an arc going across here to get some heat in there. Once we get that up to just about a cherry red color, I will get the torch down a little bit closer, add a little bit more heat to it. Not trying to get it to a temperature that we're melting the metal like you would when you're normally welding. I'm just trying to get it hot enough for that brazing rod to melt and flow down into that crack. So and now we're just getting this tacked together right here. As we continue on, we just start moving up the way here. We're adding a little bit of braze, just kind of dabbing it in there and closing up that little crack as we go. It's really not a very difficult thing to do. It's actually pretty easy to do with this TIG torch. As we get across here to the top here, I'm just going to close up this little very top part up here. I'm just trying to weld flat, so I'm not going to try to weld uphill there, but we are going to go ahead and get the top brazed in here and let that cool off. I've got the piece turned up on end now, and we're just kitting that little top part that we weren't able to go uphill on a while ago, and now across the backside. If you looked, you saw where I had actually cut a little groove in there. I did that with the grinder. I just went in through there and just kind of hollowed me out a little place for the braze to go into, and we're just going to work right down that little path and fill it in. Just a little bit, heat it up, dab a little braze in, move forward a little bit, heat it up, dab a little braze in, nice and slow and easy until we get all the way across to the end. It's actually a pretty easy process here using the TIG torch. After we got it brazed up, I came in here, let it cool down real good, and came in next and started to pull out, kind of grind out some of the braze in here where it was just up a little bit too high. Sometimes it kind of goes down a little bit of gobs or what have you. Did some of it with the angle grinder, then I came in with a die grinder and kind of got up in here in some of the places I couldn't get to very well. It's a little bit rough right now. I don't want to grind it down just completely to the metal though, because it will get a little bit thin. But I also want this to look nice when we paint it. So next step is I'm going to come in here with some body filler, like some Bondo type material. Same thing you use on autos and cars and stuff. And we're going to spread some in here and kind of smooth this out. We'll come back in, sand it out, and it will hopefully cover some of this up with the paint. It'll be raised up a little bit thick, but again, I want to have a little bit of that thickness in there just so that we're not taking all that support material out. And I've mixed up some of this putty here and put the hardener in it, and we're just going to come in here and try to get some spread down in here. Let's see, I got this tool here that's got a little radius on the end. I was going to try to come in there and come down the side. Hey guys, this is not my area of expertise by any means. I am not an auto body filling guy, but I have used this stuff before, and it works good. And actually, a lot of machines and a lot of well, particularly machines, old machines that were made from cast iron, when they shipped from the factory, this was a common practice. They would put a filler in there and basically cover up defects in the castings, little voids and whatever. Usually it doesn't affect the rigidity of the machine or anything like that. It's just more of a cosmetic thing, but very common to do that. All right, that looks pretty good. I'm probably not going to mess with it. I am going to try to build up a little bit in this little spot right down here in the bottom. Got a little area here where it just kind of didn't fill in all the way. Man, this stuff hardens in a hurry. I must have put a little bit too much hardener in there. This stuff is getting where I can't work it real quick. I may have to mix up another batch, but I'll work on that. Again, this is not my area of expertise, but you see what I'm after here. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, on the back side, and after this dries out, we'll come in here and sand that out and hopefully have a nice surface to paint on. I let my Bondo cure up here, and we came in and just did some sanding in here and smoothed everything out. And I think this is going to be a major improvement. You know, is it absolutely perfectly flat? No, but it is. You know, we don't have those jagged edges in there. So I think when we shoot some paint on this, it's going to look a little bit more natural. It's going to kind of cover up and hide some of those repairs, at least under the paint. But if you ever get in here and strip it off, the repair will be obvious. And that's one thing when I do a repair is I want it to be obvious for the next person that comes along that has to work on this thing, kind of knows what happened. So, and on the back side, very similar, a little bit more build up here, but again, smoothed out nicely. I think we're ready to shoot this with some paint, so I'm going to get it set up and get some masking done and get all my parts laid out, and we'll go ahead and get this part painted up. I have come in here and masked off all the stuff I don't want to get painted, and I think we're ready to do it. I'm just going to hit it with a rattle can here, and we're just using a semi-gloss black. And nothing, no rocket science here. Just lay down a nice layer of paint. I'll probably come back and put a second coat on this, but we'll bring you back later, let you see what it looks like. The paint has dried on this, and we're now ready to do a little bit of highlighting here. What I'm going to do is come in here and basically highlight the lettering on this to just kind of make it pop out a little bit. And to do that with, I've got some nice gold paint here. I really like highlighting letters when it's black with gold. I really think it just kind of stands out nicely. It has a nice vintage look to it. And what I'm using here is some This is some one-shot metallic gold paint. Stuff's a little bit on the expensive side, but for this kind of application, it really does a good job. So anyway, I got a little artist brush here, and we're just going to very carefully go in here and start highlighting the tops of these letters. This is tedious work that is not always fun for me, but it really makes a difference in a restoration, so I like to do this when possible. Well, there it is, all the letters nicely highlighted. Again, I really like the way that this that metallic gold sign painter's paint looks on this black. You know, it kind of pops off at you, but at the same time, it's not really gaudy looking. It really just kind of adds a little class to it, I think. And we had some lettering on the front as well as on the back, and I've got that in both places. We're going to let this paint dry before we do anything else. Guys, I think that's going to be a wrap for this episode. We got everything now. It's cleaned up, it's painted. We got our highlighting and our lettering done. Next is just going to be getting it all put back together. I've got a couple of little parts and pieces I still need to get in here to do that, some hardware and stuff that I need to order. But hopefully we can get this thing put together pretty quickly. ArnFest is coming up. Again, this is going to be an auction item at the ArnFest event this coming year to raise some money to help support Vintage Machinery and the OWWM, Old Woodworking Machines, discussion forums, as well as just going toward that ArnFest event in general. But anyway, nice little project. I'm having a lot of fun with it, and we're going to get this thing knocked out here pretty quick. That'll probably be my next video. And with that, that's going to be a wrap on this one. So as always, leave me a thumbs up if you liked what you saw. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, please. And leave comments, send me emails, whatever. And we'll talk to you guys next time around. Thanks for watching.